Welcome to Sports Close-Up. Mike Fiorello. Today, a real good show. We're here with the athletic director of McLane High School, Rob Kennerknecht. And Rob, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go way back. Why don't you tell the viewers where you're from, where you went to high school, and where you went to college. So, where are you from originally?
I grew up in Edinburgh. My parents still live here. I went to General McLane, graduated in '98.
Did you play sports here?
I was a member of the football team. That's the polite way to say it.
Okay.
Wasn't great. I was all right. I did okay.
And who was coach then?
Ken Walker for the first 3 years, former athletic director, and then Jim Wells began in '97 when I was a senior.
Okay.
So I was the first crew. So
nice.
After high school, I went to Penn State, main campus, studied sports medicine, came back, and started working here full-time as the athletic trainer in the spring of 2004.
So a big Penn State alumnus?
Yeah. Well,
we are Penn State?
Yeah, we are.
And one of Meadville's former players from last year got recruited by Penn State and was redshirted this year, Jeremy Brown.
Yes.
And I've talked to him a couple times this year and really excited about being down. He loves it.
I can't imagine a better place to be right now than right there.
And they have a great coach they hired, too. I'm really impressed with him.
Coach Franklin, yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's talk about Edinburgh athletics, and that's why we're here. How did you get the job, and tell us your steps about getting the job?
I don't know how about it. Sometimes I wonder myself. I spent 5 years here as the athletic trainer. Worked with every team, covering games, practices, everything. Get to know the people and really invest in the community. My wife and I are both from here, so that doesn't hurt. And in about 2009, General McLane hired me away from Hammett and just made me a staff member and wanted me just working here.
Full-time trainer?
Full-time athletic trainer, and then they added on some equipment manager responsibilities and start kind of getting into that world, which was awesome. And I say that with all sarcasm. But I did that for 2 years, got more involved with game day setup and just the overall athletic department. And then when Ken Walker retired in 2011, I applied for the job and got it. And here we are.
Well, let's talk about your background and being that you dealt with the injuries of the athletes in many different areas of athletics, also working with their coaches, getting to know the coaches real well. Then the equipment part, you started to learn about, budgets and so forth there. Did that help you prepare? And did you talk to Ken about the job as you were thinking about applying for it?
Yeah, Ken and I spoke Ken's been part of my life since I was in high school. I mean, he was my football coach, confirmation sponsor. I've known him, Uncle Kenny, for forever. We had very open and candid talks about, what all does your job entail, and is this something that you see being possible? And he was very supportive of it, and he thought that I could take on all the additional responsibilities. But yeah, I mean, that absolutely, you start getting into planning a budget, looking down the road, having a big picture of what you're going to need for what team and when, and that absolutely plays into the athletic director part.
Knowing a little bit about what an AD does, then you have to have the support of a great person, and you do and your wife. Then you probably talked about it because you spent a lot of hours here, and not just with the athletics, but meetings and meeting with parents and booster clubs and everything else you're putting together. Your wife must have been very supportive.
She is, and anyone that knows her has a sense of humor about it, and she puts up with a lot, and I want that on the record. But no, she knows deep down this is what I want to do, and this is absolutely where I want to do it. And she teaches first grade over at Edinburgh, and this is our life. We chose this town, we chose this school district, and we'll do whatever we have to make that work. And we support each other, I think, as well as anybody can. And the kids are along for the ride, and let's go.
Talk about your kids. How many kids you have, and what's their names and age?
2. I have a son, Jack, who's 9. He's in 3rd grade. My daughter, Lauren, just turned 6 and a half. She's in 1st grade.
Does Jack kind of like tag along with Dad to different games and so forth?
Part of the deal, if we're calling it that, is a lot of times if you want to see Dad, you got to get dropped off at work for a little bit. And we just went down to the girls' playoff game on Saturday and made an afternoon of it, got lunch, and yeah, that's what it's all about. Just time with your kids, and however you make it happen, you make it happen. So yeah, he's definitely he got to be the ball boy and kind of pulled out of the crowd for that. But I hope he enjoys it. I think it's a really good way to grow up, and you have a whole town watching you grow up and looking out for you. So it's pretty cool.
It sure is. The Lancers is the mascot for General McLane. How did they come upon the name Lancers for General McLane? That's pretty cool. You don't see a lot of that in this area.
No. Going back to the 1950s, they merged the schools in 1960. I believe the high school opened in 61. It was the Edinburgh Turtles and the McLane Rams.
Okay.
And
I didn't know that. That's
yeah, which you could have done some hybrid of that, I guess, the Ramming Turtles or something. Maybe. Keep an open mind, folks. But I believe the school board or whoever at that time sat down and decided that would be a good name, and here we are.
All right, let's talk about how many sports at the present time do you have here at the high school?
All total, from middle school, JV, and varsity combined, we have 18 programs that we currently field, top to bottom. That's broken then into 7th grade, 8th grade, right. JV, 9th, whatever. It's something like 40-some total individual groups that go out and play and train.
Most schools across western Pennsylvania, enrollments have gone down.
Mm-hmm.
I know in Meadville they have a 7th and 8th grade football program, and they have a varsity JV. They don't have the 9th grade anymore because of numbers. Is that true of Edinburgh too? Have they gone 7th and 8th JV varsity, or do you still have a 9th grade?
We used to do a combined middle school 7th and 8th, and we actually get about 60, 65 kids a year come out for that.
Wow.
And we've actually split that into just 7th grade and just 8th grade.
Right, that's what Meadville's done.
And that's been, it's hard to get everybody in.
Right.
When you've got that many kids. But at the same point, I think it's great we have that many kids that want to be a part of a program, want to put the work in. I see nothing but positives from that. So it's not always easy finding gear that fits everybody, but we make it work, and I've been very happy with it. But as far as like 9th grade, we have 9th grade basketball, but that's the only one left. 9th grade football we haven't had in probably 15, 20 years, just due to numbers.
Right.
Put them all to JV and sink or swim.
In the fall, you have football.
Mm-hmm.
You have girls volleyball.
Yep.
Boys and girls soccer.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you have?
Boys and girls cross country.
Okay.
We have boys golf, and we've been very fortunate. We've had a couple female golfers the last few years, and we try to get them involved in a region schedule.
I always felt that's the greatest team to coach if you want to be a coach, the golf coach.
I can think of not many that would be better.
That'd be pretty all
You
play golf?
The polite way is to say no.
Okay.
It's not really golf what I do. It's more just try to hit it really hard and see what happens. But
all right, so you have all those sports. You're the AD. Do you have help though? Because when you have a JV game going on, you might have a volleyball game that night. Do you have other people help you set up?
We're very fortunate here. We have a lot of people that help out with the game day stuff, whether it's the ticket sellers and takers, game managers. Mr. Walker will still come back and game manage for us and set up volleyball when I'm off at soccer or whatever. Mm-hmm. And just this past year, this summer, we signed an agreement with UPMC Hammond. We actually have some substitute trainers that can come out and cover things in addition to what I'm doing. So that's been tremendous.
So when you go to a football game, are you telling me you're not just the AD, you're also the trainer?
When the game starts, I'm just the athletic trainer.
Okay.
And we have people, watching the crowd, watching the money, watching whatever. But I have to be primarily focused still on what's going on the field and not what's in the stands or in the parking lot, and just limited to injuries and safety.
Tell us about your job, though. I mean, you're dealing with budgets for each team. How does the budget process work in this school district? Do you tell each coach how much money they have to spend, and they hand you a budget, then you sit down and make cuts if you have to, or how does it work?
Every year after the season, we'll have our end-of-the-year evaluation. We'll go over good, bad, and ugly. And one of the sections of that is the budget. What are your needs for the future, next year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever.
And is that like, let's use football again, is that when the head coach has to do from 7 through varsity?
Yeah. Our budget covers that entire program, as big as the window is. So high school soccer is just 9 through 12, but football is 7 through 12 with 150 kids. So you have to have a plan in place. But we have, we work at a budget with the school board. They approve it. That's the number you stick under, and you make it work.
Okay. Now we talked about you just off the air that you always had jerseys from Russell Athletic, and they just informed you they're discontinuing doing jerseys, which is going to impact the schools throughout the country.
Yeah.
So now you're at a scramble because you said now you might have a jersey not looking the same as another one.
We'll have to look at a couple different options. One is maybe a year or two where not everybody's wearing the exact same thing.
How does that fly for the officials? Will they understand that
I think
too?
the officials, they just care it's the same color.
Okay.
So as long as it's nothing too loud,
right.
we'll be all right. But we'll have to sit down and look at, we have to outfit, home and away jerseys, home and away pants for, at least the varsity, 140 some kids. Or, excuse me, 70 kids. Middle school, we have, all the stuff that we have now will probably just trickle down to them and last for the next, 10, 20 years till I retire. But
is that across the board? Are you looking at basketball uniforms then too?
We don't have each team can kind of pick their uniform however they want.
Okay.
We're not bound to one specific manufacturer.
Okay.
So Nike, Under Armour, Adidas,
Right.
Whatever. They're all in the mix.
Well,
so
that's nice.
It is. It is and it isn't. It's hard to track everything down and get some
For
consistency.
you, it's not as nice. For coach, though, they have a little freedom.
A little bit of freedom to pick, and it's the kids really like that.
Yeah.
They get pretty excited when a new jersey comes along. And
Yeah.
It's a cool feeling.
Now, is the cheerleaders under you too?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the budget process. Let's talk about the scheduling process of all these things. Now,
My favorite.
When you're in a region, you and I talked off the air, the new region might be coming next year, but when you're in a region, that's pretty much, that schedule's done, right? You have to fill in the rest.
The region schedule is given to us by District 10 for each sport, and those are your mandatory games.
Then you have to fill the rest in.
And then you fill the rest with independent games.
And that's when you go crazy with the other in all sports, right?
Well, and we're all trying to line up what days are available,
Right.
what times, who's got a gym. Can I do wrestling the same day I have basketball? It's a chess match, but that's as crazy as it is. That's probably the most fun you have, is trying to work the problem and see how you get to the solution.
And football, maybe you have to add 3 games, but basketball, you're really looking at a lot. Tournaments, or you're hosting a tournament, you're trying to get teams.
And then you have East and Central, and
Right.
we don't have them anymore. We lost 4 opponents off last year's schedule, so we're still kind of trying to fill that void. So let the games begin.
All right, so fall pretty much, when the schedule's done, the season starts, pretty much follows pretty good. The winter sports, they're inside, the schedule goes pretty good. Let's go to the spring, when now you're dealing with the weather.
Yeah.
And you got softball and baseball and track and so forth, and the weather isn't always good. What else do you have in the fall? I mean,
well,
the spring.
snow's still going on. We have tennis also outdoors.
Okay, so that's right. You deal with late snow, then you get
It snows April 15th.
and then you get rain almost every day. Yep. That must be the spring must be the hardest time to be as far as scheduling.
You got to meter out your hope, because if you get too excited too early, you'll pay for it later. But sometimes you just have to laugh and say it is what it is. I can't make it rain or not rain or whatever. You control what you can control, and you got to have a sense of humor about it, because it's not going to change.
As far as baseball and softball are concerned, as long as you get the region games in, the non-region games are secondary when it starts
Correct. For all sports, the only mandatory things that have to be played are the region games. District 10 will then take region standings, and that's how they populate their playoff brackets. So as long as the region games get played, you might only get 14 of your 20 games in, but as long as all your region games are done, you'll be all right. So that takes precedence. So you might have a sunny day on Thursday with an independent game, but a rain Tuesday with the region game. You'll have to move your independent game to make way for the region game.
And everybody understands that. So somebody might
We're
call
all
you
part
and
of the
say,
same machine.
we
so
can't play the independent non-region game today
Right.
because we have to make up a region game. You guys understand that, and you coach.
None of us like it, but
Right.
we're all in the same boat. So yeah.
And that's true. Sometimes coaches don't understand it, or parents don't understand. Let's talk about parents. But that's part of your job too. What's the philosophy of Joe McLane if they don't like the way a coach is doing something as far as their son or their daughter? Do they go see the coach first? Do they come to you first? What's your philosophy?
Being a parent now, I understand entirely. When you have an emotional investment into your child, you want them to have the best possible experience. You want them to have as much opportunity as they can possibly have. I understand it. I get it. I did maybe 10 years ago. I do now.
And that's a good answer too, because I always felt as an educator, when you become your own parent, you become a better educator.
Part of the fun is you have to be able to look at whatever a different opinion is and try to put yourself in their shoes and understand where they're coming from. And most of the time you'll find they have a point, they have a reason, and they're not necessarily wrong. How they choose to populate that answer is up to them largely. But at the same point, I understand where people come from when it's a differing view. Officially, though, if there's an issue a coach or a parent has with a coach, they are expected to address the coach first, and a lot of things can get handled at that one-to-one level. If things are not handled satisfactorily there, then they're encouraged to contact me, and I get involved, and we try to, again, find some resolution that works. From there, we'd go to the principal or the superintendent or the school board if it had to. But typically, if we're all in this for the right reasons, we will handle it at the lower levels and do what's best for the team, the kids, and everybody involved. Try to.
Sure. What gives you the most satisfaction being AD Joe McLane at this point?
Well, it probably wouldn't be good to say when I get to go home, but depends on who you're asking. No, flat out, without hesitation, watching kids come through the system from middle school on up, watching them grow, watching their relationships with each other develop, and watching them buy into our ultimate philosophy, which is we're all in this together, teamwork, all the things that sound cliche, but we really mean it. and watching them, the light bulb go on, like, this is working. There's nothing like it. It's a great age group to work with. It's a great environment to be in, and I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. So.
And kids are amazing, aren't they? You know, people knock the
depends on the day.
Well, but people knock the young people today. The young people today, I think, they go to class all day. They do really well academically. They're going to practice. They're doing well there. No kid is saying, "I'm going to hope I miss a block," or "hope I throw an interception," or "hope we don't win." They all want to win in any sport. They hope I don't throw the ball away in basketball or whatever. So sometimes I think people in the stands have to understand that they're still 16, 17, 18
At the end of the
year-olds.
day, and I remember being 16.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
No.
But at the same point, it's one of the most enjoyable times of your life because it's the most fun.
You talked about philosophy a lot, so I want to ask you, do you sit down with the entire coaching staff, especially the head coaches, and say, this is the philosophy of the entire athletic program, or you pretty much let the head coach develop their own within their program?
I don't know that we've ever put a full label on it. We have our expectations of them, certainly. That's been in place for as long as I can remember, going back to the early 90s. This is what we do here. This is how General McLane works. And
what are those expectations here?
Everyone's in it for the right reasons. Team before self. You're expected to work. You're expected to try. You're expected to listen. You're expected to buy in to what we're doing. And if everybody does it, it's pretty impressive. We do let our coaches have their individual philosophies for their programs. I think that's healthy. I can't make a coach do something that is against their personal belief or whatever. We let them pick their assistant coaches all the way down to the youth or middle school.
Do they
levels.
evaluate the assistants and you evaluate the head coach?
The principal and I will evaluate the head coach.
He evaluates his assistants.
And he or she would evaluate the assistant.
So if he wants to make a change from year to year on an assistant coach, he has that flexibility to do that.
All coaches are on a 1-year deal, so it's
nice.
Yeah, you have as much flexibility as you want.
You ever run into problems that way where an assistant coach comes to you and says, this guy's getting rid of me, or this lady's getting rid of me, and I shouldn't be getting rid of him?
I will say this, not that specifically, but you will see certain relationships that don't work, and it's either fortunate or unfortunate, or people are people, and we're all going to handle each other in a certain way, and you hope everybody can leave with a good feeling about what they did.
Now, looking at the past success for General McLane Sports, which has been a lot. Community involvement. This community wants to win.
Yeah.
You have Edinburgh University next door.
Yep.
Do they impact your philosophy at all, Edinburgh University?
I think it's a natural just proximity. You're going to have that. They're college athletics. You're in it to win. Mm-hmm. There's no guaranteed playing time in college. Mm-hmm. They're in it to win. So I think there's a natural, we expect to perform at our highest levels at all times and try our best at all times to be successful. I would think that's a pretty natural pairing. As far as the community, we've had tremendous support. Again, going back to the mid-'90s when I remember really paying attention, the amount of fans that will travel to a playoff game for volleyball, soccer. We've got games coming up this week that we'll have student sections at bigger than most other people because it's kind of like the cool thing to do.
You're talking about the supported community. Does it ever overstep its bounds, though, with some community people say, we want a new coach in?
Not that it gets to me in that capacity. I'm sure if anybody who sits in the stands at any event anywhere, you're going to hear some of that. Anyway, why don't we throw more? Why don't we run more? Why don't we pass more? That's naturally occurring, and that you're going to have that. I don't know that we put much credence to it. Our programs, look at football. Why don't we pass more in football? Because we're a running team, and it's designed to control the clock and control the pace of the game. There's a reason for it.
I think Meadville gets asked that a lot.
Well, Meadville's got a lot of great running backs, and you got to get the ball to the horses that are going to get you there. At some point, every coach has to look at what hand they're dealt and make the best of it. And a lot of times, that might not be what everybody wants, but it's ultimately what's best for the kids, what's best for the team, and our ultimate goals. But as far as support, I'll take whatever support we can get, and we get a lot of it. And I one of my favorite things to do is go to playoff basketball games or whatever, and you just see a sea of red come in. And I think everybody knows McLane travels pretty well, and that's you'll see people at the store then the next day and like, hey, how about that game last night? And you could
a lot of pride.
Yeah,
a lot of
I think that's probably
pride,
the best way to put it. Yeah.
See that special Super Bowl that they gave the golf. Super Bowl. Tell us about that and how did General McLane get one of those?
That was a new program started by the NFL where they found out where everybody who was at the Super Bowl went to high school and sent a commemorative ball. So Bleedy Ray Wilson, who graduated here, then played at University of Connecticut. He was on the Falcons team, so we got one for them being in the Super Bowl with the Patriots last year. his sister TL is one of our softball coaches.
Oh,
so
wow.
when he got picked up, she was going down to help him move. I said, "Well, see if he'll sign it." So
Yeah.
she took it down, brought it back, and
Wow.
and there it sits. But
That's pretty awesome. I bet the kids get their eyes open
yeah,
when they see
they do.
that.
And they
huh?
say, "Really? I'm like, yeah, you can get there from here."
That's right.
I mean, talk about a talent. Came out of nowhere, played soccer, gives it up, plays football his senior year, and by middle of the season he's getting D1.
Plays 1 year of football, gets offers.
He had
wow.
great measurables, great upside, great kid. We're very proud of him. And we're happy that he's still playing and doing what he wants to do.
That's totally awesome. Tell us about Penn State.
That ball is from Mike Motti, who was the captain of the Penn State Nittany Lions when they had their issues with the Sandusky trial.
Right.
And he was...
So he was there when O'Brien took over?
Yes,
O'Brien?
he would have been there the first year. He was. He got hurt, I think that... and on senior night, every teammate wore 42 on their helmets for him. Like, what? Come on, where else do you see that kind of support for someone who was vocal leader, on-field leader?
He was a true leader then, if they respected him that much.
True leader. And I'm an alumni member, so I, of course, do the thing and look up his email and send him a message just saying thank you for, being who you are and helping us through this. And he wrote back a nice response, and the ball came in the mail later, and I thought that was pretty awesome. So it's hopefully you're supporting the right things and doing things the right way.
You talk about footballs and awards. We got to talk about, and I know you weren't the AD then, but when Gerald McLane pulled off, which is hard to duplicate in this state, a state basketball and a state football championship the same year.
Yep.
And some of the kids on both of those were kids that were very important to both programs.
Yep. I don't think you're ever going to see that again.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
Like it had never been done, and then we did it, and then the next year Terrell Pryor at wasn't Aliquippa, it was Jeanette.
Jeanette, yeah.
It's like it takes that level of athlete to do that, and he had help, and we certainly had a pretty deep roster. But you walk by the trophy case every day on your way in, and you see that those kids, and you just look at how many of them went on and furthered their career in college, and or the pros, and like it's pretty amazing. And they were all, homegrown kids who were here and great teammates, bought into a philosophy, tried their best. I don't think we're ever going to see it again.
That was an historical run for both teams, and you talk about a following. I think they picked up other communities, started following them in both sports, so they couldn't believe. One time Gerald McLane was a very small community. It's a little bit bigger than it used to be, but still, if you put it in retrospect to other communities in this state, that's a pretty awesome job.
Yeah. What else can you say about it? It was outstanding. I remember the tickets went on sale for the basketball final, and they sold out in 20 minutes. And I was supposed to get my wife a ticket, so she ended up sitting up top because she was on the second run of tickets. Because I said, "Oh, there'll be plenty." I'm like, no, there weren't. The line was out the door. And what else could you ask for?
Unbelievable, right there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this year right now, how the fall teams have done so far. I know football's had a great turnaround.
Yeah, switching things up offensively and some schemes that we were doing, and we go on a little run, and you get past some of these, the McDowell and the Erie matchups that are pretty one-sided, and you start settling in a little bit, and you caught a break on the schedule, picked off 3 wins in a row, won the North 5A selection over Fort LaBeouf, and we've got a week to prepare now for the winter of Meadville Conneaut, and I think we're in a pretty good spot physically and mentally, and pretty excited. I think the kids are too.
and they should be. Anytime you start turning things around and you listen to your coaches and you put into play what they want you to do, you become a better team, and they're probably closer than they ever were.
I would think so, yeah.
Let's talk about your girls volleyball team's had an unbelievable, fantastic season.
Yes, they have. Still undefeated. They've lost in some tournament stuff, but head-to-head matches they're still undefeated, and I think we're going into the playoffs as the #1 seed, and that's pretty nice. But it goes out the window Saturday when you start up with Slippery Rock, and one team at a time. And let's work to our ultimate goal, which is get downstate and see what we can do.
How about soccer teams? How did they do?
Girls soccer finished a little below 500. They had a really tough playoff game with Grove City on Saturday. Had some adversity early, fought back, made it a 3-2 game. Had a lot of chances late to try to tie it up, and it's unfortunate that they didn't get to go further. I think they're an underestimated team, and I think they fought very, very hard. I'm proud of the effort from them. Boys soccer has their playoff game tomorrow with Franklin over at Fairview High School at 7. It feels a little rehearsed. It's because I've had to write it down 1,000 times already. But they're in another unique position where they've got some really good talent in that AAA bracket, and hopefully we can get back to the finals like we were last year and try to move on.
Cross country?
Cross country, boys and girls. Boys finished first, girls were second in their region.
By the way, I always think that's the hardest sport. I mean,
their sport is other sports punishment.
Exactly. I like seeing those shirts, and those kids are unbelievable.
I can't run at all, as you can probably guess, folks. No, we've got a lot of talent, a lot of kids that train year round for this and really live for running, and it shows in their performance. Devin Bale, Nate Price, Eric Andrzejewski, these are state level runners, and they're all within a year or two of each other, and they're working. Their teammates work harder with them, and it's tremendous to watch. But they go down to districts this Saturday at Buell Park, and hopefully we can send a nice crew to states and see what we can do down there.
Do you have your own soccer fields for games, or do they use the football field?
We'll use the main Linden field for all of our varsity and JV competitions.
So when that is scheduled, do the varsity football coaches sometimes say, like, we got to leave early, our field, and go somewhere else, or do they?
Part of that community that we have is, I'm sure everybody would love to have the turf every day, and why wouldn't you? It's a great facility to use. You can do more on it. You don't have to worry about uneven ground or everything. But everybody understands. We're all in this together. It's a game field, and if there's a game, you're going to be on the grass practice field. And you might get an eye roll once in a while, and not try to make them laugh through it. But everybody understands why we have it and what it's for. And I think it's been a tremendous addition to the facilities here, and I'm very happy that we have it. This is the 10th year that Linden Field has been on an artificial surface, and the expected life is about 10, 12 years. So we've already kind of started the process of okay, at some point if we have damage, what can we repair, and what would we have to actually ultimately replace the whole thing with? And that would be obviously a major project, and we would have to time that out with summer schedules and when we could actually get on there to have it replaced. We've been the baseball boosters have been very active trying to improve on a field from 1978 that they've put countless hours into it, and they're trying to improve it. So that's been brought up. Softball a few years ago was moved off-site to Edinburgh Elementary. We renovated one of those fields and made it a little bit nicer.
I see Sagertown girls softball put turf in their infield.
I saw that. I heard that
and they
last
said
year.
It really saves them from canceling a lot of games now.
Because you can play
and then
in a month.
maybe with baseball, totally turf.
I've been to that field once just to check it out, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But again, money
I know. I'm just
falls into it.
You would think, though, in this part of the state, those fields, especially the spring sports, really need to be turfed.
I've heard everything from baseball should be played in the fall to with a fall like this, totally. But you'll run into overlaps of kids that do multiple fall sports.
Right. I always thought, to be honest with you, Rob, that the PIAA should move baseball and start a month later. Let them play when school's out also as a high school.
That'd be interesting.
Because the weather's so much better in May. April is, as you know.
But how much of that is just Northwest Pennsylvania?
That's the thing.
It's a pretty big state, and the rest of the state doesn't understand what we mean.
Because the East is no problem.
What do you mean it's snowing in April? 3 feet. Can you believe it?
Exactly.
But I'm sure, if you really wanted to, you could go to every facility anywhere and just find 5 things you wanted to change about it.
Do you get help, though? Do the boosters say, we have these businesses are willing to donate money to help us improve our facility, maybe get a scoreboard up at baseball stadium?
We've been very fortunate here that our school district has been able to support all those things independently on their own, which I think is nice. The major project should come from there first. With the turf, back in 2007, that was spearheaded by what they called the turf team, where a bunch of people got together and tried to raise as much money as they could to spearhead that project. And that, it wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Right.
They had to raise, X amount of dollars to get the project rolling, and they worked really hard to get it done. So there has been situations where that has occurred, but primarily the school does handle it all on their own.
Boosters, do you have one for each sport? Or is there a total one booster club? Some schools have one club. Other schools, I know, have one each one.
We used to have one central group going back again to when I was in school, and I want to say around 2000 it broke off. So the band boosters took over concessions, and then each individual team, football, baseball, basketball, they all formed their own individual groups. So you've got 18 different groups feeding 18 different machines. And
so how does that work for you when you have all those? I know for the ADs that have them like you do, they're like, sometimes it's like it's a nightmare, and sometimes
I wouldn't say that. I think it just shows how many people want to be involved and help and do whatever they can to help their child's experience.
So the football games are manned by the band boosters?
All the concession stands during fall sports, indoor at the indoor one by basketball, the band boosters handle all that.
Okay.
And their service is outstanding. Their organization is outstanding. And to throw band in there too. They're just as involved as athletics in getting kids to do this stuff together, and It's a tremendous asset.
And I agree with you. Let's wrap up your part of the interview with this. Tell me why you think that athletics, include cheerleading, include the band, all that stuff is important for a kid to take part in, whatever it is.
Beyond just the classroom, there's the social element of being around other people, your friends, your teammates, learning how to work in those situations, learning how to take orders from a coach.
Yeah, you're off your cell phone for a minute too.
for a little bit anyway. The amount of benefit to extracurricular activities, specifically athletics, is overwhelming. Time management, keeping kids accountable on grades, giving them a reason to work hard. There's no parallel to it. And I know not everybody gets into sports or not into the music or the play production here or whatever, but I think it's such a great opportunity to get involved and enrich the entire high school experience.
And I do have one more question that I thought about, because I went onto your website today and I saw something that really struck me, which I think is really unbelievable that you guys have here. You have your own radio station? and the alumni can click on it, and if they live in a different part of the country, pick up
They
your
started
games.
that a year ago. It's an internet broadcast, and it started with a kid named Isaac Petcack last year, and his brother Sam is kind of picking up the reins this year and going with it. But they will try to get to games and do like a play-by-play and actually do the broadcast online. And there were times where I was at a track meet, but I put the baseball game on that was going on the other side of campus just to keep tabs on what was going on. They do a fantastic job. They're trying to grow and cover more things, but I think it was really just kind of a couple kids wanted to do it, and how great is that?
But it's on your website, so an alumnus living in a different part of the country could click on if they want to see how the football team's doing.
If they wanted to, yeah, absolutely.
Have you gotten any feedback yet from any alumni?
Anything that I've heard has been pretty positive.
Nice.
They think it's cool that they do it, and obviously they're going to say, they sound like a bunch of high school kids, but that's what they're supposed to sound like. But self-starting, motivated kids trying to actually make something nice, I think that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. That's pretty wonderful. Rob, I want to thank you for giving us some time talking about Gerald McLane Athletics.
Absolutely.
I can tell in your voice you're very proud of what you do, and you're very proud of being a part of the Lancer program.
Thank you. That's probably the nicest compliment I can receive, so I mean it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Back with Jim Wells, the head football coach of the Gerald McLane Lancers. Coach, thanks for coming on.
Sure.
Beginning of the year, things looked a little bleak for your team. You made a couple changes, you and your staff, and my God, Coach, you flipped the whole schedule, and you look good going into the playoffs right now.
Well, thanks. I think that our kids have worked very hard, and they just kind of bought into the team philosophy, kept faith, and believed, and just continued to work hard and improve.
Well, beyond that, and that's a good answer, but beyond that, you and your staff sat down, I think you evaluated your team, and you guys weren't afraid to make some changes. Mm-hmm. How did you sell the changes to your team? Because sometimes it's hard to do that young kids say, we're making a few changes, not because you're not good, just that might help the team.
Well, it actually happened during a game. During the Union City game, the offense was a little stagnant, and we put Sierra quarterback and tried to run some of the Wildcat stuff, mm-hmm. and it was very successful, and we just decided that was the route we had to go, and we had to build on that.
How long have you been coaching McLane football?
21 years.
21 years, and you've done a great job. Your record speaks for itself. Is every year a different year, meaning that you just look at what you have and then you coach it differently, or pretty much same philosophy?
Well, I think what we try to do is try to identify the kids that fit our system, and put those in those key spots that we need them to do. Obviously, quarterback's a very important position for our offense, and so we try to identify very athletic kid in that position, and then obviously we need a bullet at the fullback position, or a real strong running back at that position, and then from that point we just try to fill in people that complement those two positions, and obviously work very hard to get an offensive line that works together.
Most high school teams have gone to the spread,
Yes.
Then back when you started coaching, it was probably the I or double tights, mm-hmm. or whatever. So you have one team locally that hasn't moved to the spread, and that's Meadville. They run a tight wing T formation. Mm-hmm. What's your feelings about that offense, and what's your feelings about the spread offense?
Well, Fort LaBeouf is a version of the wing T also,
mm-hmm. Right,
and so is Meadville. Union City runs the option. Cambridge runs an option type flair to it. And so there's still some teams out there that are doing similar things in those arenas. My opinion about it is that I think the spread system is a great system, but you need a number of athletes, and you need depth at that position. You need a couple different quarterbacks that can throw and can run. You need a lot of athletes that can catch. You need an offensive line that can protect. And I think your wing tee and your option-oriented offenses might be more geared toward a public school where you're trying to utilize your best athletes and get the ball in positions that can help you to be successful. I think when you're coaching at a school that's just loaded with athletes, the spread system's an outstanding system to run.
How has technology changed the way you coach today? I mean, you guys more film. The kids look at film more and use that as a teaching tool?
There's no doubt about it. I think the game has become so much more complex, even in the last 5 years. It just filtered down from the college levels, pro and college levels, and you see high school teams doing a lot of the same things, and it's just it happens so quickly, and there's just the days of playing just a base defense or just a one base defense and just reading keys and reads. I think those days are gone. You have to be multiple in what you do. You have to switch it up, you have to change it up, and you have to be able to roll with the times to be successful.
Let's talk about another part of technology. I know when I played high school ball back in Long Island in the early 70s, our head coaches, nobody had phones. Mm-hmm. And now today in the college and high school level, you see a lot of headphones and coaches up in the box. How much do you rely on your coaches up top?
Well, now everything's on the iPad. So within 10 seconds, you have that play. You can see the play, you can make adjustments, and coaches have the iPad up in the box. We have it on the sideline, and so you need to be making those adjustments quickly because the other team's going to do it also, and if you can't, then you're behind the 8 ball.
As the head coach, do you run the offense or the defense, or do you have coordinators doing that for you?
I run the offense. Obviously, I listen to my staff and what they are on the game plan as far as what we're looking for, so they help me to see what plays are open based on how the defense is playing and based on the strengths that we have. Defensively, I do have a defensive coordinator. We prepare together. He calls the plays on Friday nights. He calls the defense on Friday nights. But a lot of times we are in situations where, we're adjusting based on what the offense does. So.
Special teams. Do you have a special teams coordinator, or do you run that too?
We kind of share the special teams responsibility. Coach Soboleski deals with the punt return. Coach Bowles does a little bit more on kickoff and just kind of coordinates it and keeps the depth on all our special teams. Coach Frick runs the kickoff return. My thing is punt, and I don't know. We always struggle on extra point. I think we're doing a pretty good job on it this year, but that's, I guess, one of the areas that we all try to do our best to make that team go. And we've been very happy with our kickoff team this year. We've had excellent kickoff coverage, and I think that's just probably a combination also.
I've noticed that some teams have struggled finding a kicker. Mm-hmm. A lot of kids that kick actually are playing soccer today. I know back when I first came to Meadville in the late 70s, Larry McNulty was the head coach, and he would get a soccer kid just to kick and let him practice soccer. Do you ever use a soccer kid,
Yes.
or you want that kid every day?
We have a younger player that is a soccer player, and we've had that in the past. It just depends on the year. We have a kid kicking for us right now that is a quarterback, and he has soccer experience. Mm-hmm. He played when he was younger, and that's usually the case with kickers. They've had some soccer experience. They played at a younger level. But there have been those years that we've gone with the soccer player also. It just depends.
How important to you is the special teams as part of the game? I know offense and defense are very important, but when you're playing a team and you're playing for a championship, can you steal a game with your special teams?
You can, but I don't believe it's a third of the game that all the coaches preach. I just don't. I think that the offenses and defense have become so intricate that if you're spending a third of your time on special teams, you're in trouble. I think that it's very important. You have to be sound. You have to be adequate. You got to make sure that everybody is on the same page, and you have to do things fundamentally right. But I just don't believe that you want to make it too complicated. I think that at the high school level, you just need to make sure that what you do is sound and reliable, and you get everybody on the same page so that you can focus on your offense and your defense.
So what you're saying then, if it becomes too complicated, they will lose their aggressiveness, they'll be thinking too much?
That and the fact that they'll be thinking, and and again, it takes away time from stopping people and scoring points. So I'm just very strong believer in doing what we do well, but just a few things on special teams, not getting too complicated with it.
Offense and defense, you must be strong in fundamentals. Obviously, you believe in fundamentals. Same thing there. Do you want your kids learning a few things and doing well, so they're not learning too much and doing some well and some poorly?
Well, the game always comes down to blocking and tackling. I mean, it definitely does. Any coach,
no matter what you're running, correct?
Right. Yes, it comes down to blocking and tackling and running the right angles. So, different coaches have different ways of going about doing that. We don't do a lot of live stuff, but we spend a ton of time on fundamentals and techniques. We have tackling rings. We have bags, and we spend a ton of time teaching the correct tackling form and technique, and forming up in practice. We want them to form up the correct way and take the correct angles, and we really try to emphasize that so the kids do things the right way.
It's funny you said that too, because I was watching an NFL game a little bit this past weekend, and they talked about how tackling has really gone down at the upper levels, and more pros have had their heads down looking at the grass instead of hitting through the man and lifting and wrapping. What you teach, and I've watched your teams over the years, 21st year at McLane here now. How have you changed from the first year to now, or have you?
I think, honestly, we've just had to roll with the times in terms of, because I was one of those coaches that was pretty basic, I think, in the beginning. One defense, reads and keys, offensively, hang your hat on, a few plays with a couple of things, maybe play action and that kind of thing. And I just think that you've had to roll with the times, and you have to be very multiple in terms of offenses and defenses and what you do in those arenas, and trying to confuse your opponents, keep them off base, and use those kind of tactics, because I think the game has evolved to where if you do one thing and you're just one-dimensional, I think you're in trouble.
Yeah. How about as far as relationship with the young people? Have you changed at all in the 21 years? Were you a little when you're young, sometimes you're a little tougher on the kids than maybe you are today? Not that you don't have discipline every kids you do, but in that respect.
I think I started as a very young coach. I was 26 when I started coaching, and so I think a lot of the kids related to me more as an older brother, or a young teacher, and I think I've evolved into more of a father figure to most of these kids, and not saying that I am their dad, but that type of figure. So I think that's more of the relationship now, and it just slowly has kind of evolved into that. So you wear a lot of hats as a coach. You're a counselor. You're sometimes you're drill sergeant. You're a friend. Sometimes you just got to be there for them, especially in this day and age. And so that's changed a lot. You're not doing as much coaching as you did back then. You're doing a lot of the other things and dealing with the other issues, personal issues, as the society changes.
And I know football. We think of the young, tough male. Are kids more sensitive today?
Absolutely, and that's tough. And you have to evolve with that too. And but you also can't enable. You also can't enable. You also
gotta
have
be
to,
honest.
Yeah, you got it. You have to still be able to push them. You have to explain to them, hey, you know what? Your feelings are real, but they really don't have any effect on what happens here. They're real, but it's that's not. Playing time is all about effort and hard work and about putting those things aside. And when you go out on the field, you're equal to everybody else, and you got to perform. And you got to make them understand that.
I always felt too, Coach, a lot of times. And I'm not saying it happens here, but it happens a little bit everywhere, I believe. The people on a Friday night, it's easy to coach Friday night. And they don't realize that a lot of your coaching is done by the time that your kids take the field. When your kids take the field, your control of them is pretty much gone. You can call a play, you can call a defensive scheme, but they have to execute what you call. And you're hoping that more times than not they'll execute it the way you have drawn it up. But there's no kid that wants to fumble or throw an interception or miss a tackle. Those things happen during the course of the year. And sometimes parents will say, well, what's he doing that for? Why doesn't he do this? That's easy to do sitting in the stands, isn't it? Because you might have a player come game day that all of a sudden maybe their grandfather passed away or they had a fight with their girlfriend, when they're 17. That's a big thing. And you got to get them back on track, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, on Friday night, as you said, a lot of times the hay is in the barn. Have you prepared? Have you done the things that you need to do to be successful that week and throughout the year? You know, have you worked on the fundamentals that you needed to work on, and have you prepared enough for what that team does? But it seems like more times than not, you know, there's always a wrinkle, there's always an adjustment that you have, a key adjustment that you need to make to help your team to be successful.
You guys do a good job at that at halftime?
I think we have in the past.
Yeah.
I think we do our part. I think we do a pretty good job of making changes when we need to. I think it's been something that our staff's been able to do.
Got to put a smile on your face. Tell us about the state championship. That must have been an unbelievable year.
That was a lot of fun. Had a very, very unique group of kids come through
and
together.
Some of those kids played on the basketball team, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That's true. One of them coaches for me right now. And
who's that?
Bob Stauffer.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Bob Stauffer's on
his
staff.
dad has coached here many years.
He's an assistant coach on the basketball team also.
I played softball probably back in the day.
Good friend of mine. And obviously we're lucky to have Brian Schultz at the basketball team, and he was a part of that also with basketball. But the Skeletons and the Astorinos and a lot of kids that
Astorino went to Penn State.
Right, and Eric Kolka and
Did
Brad
know
Callen, all those guys. And there's
who came from Meadville?
Yes, I know Brad came from Meadville. And
did you know that team was special before they started that season?
Well, you know, all you heard, they were really. They started talking in 8th grade about how they're going to win a state championship.
Wow.
That's, you know, they were just, you know, a little cocky, a little arrogant. You know, everybody seemed to love them, though, because they did things the right way most of the time. And they had very good personalities. I mean, they wanted to be near you. Yeah, they wanted to sit by you on the bus. They wanted to talk with you. They wanted to joke around with you, you know, and they were all together. And they had a lot of investment in the program and in the community, and people liked them, and they just liked being around them, and they had a lot of energy, and they were a very fun group to coach. They drive you crazy sometimes, but it was a very fun group, and a lot of them are involved. You know, they're around, they're involved in coaching, they're involved in sports, and you know, and other coaches tell me, you know, you always know a McLane kid when he gets into coaching, because he just has a lot of energy and a lot of life and a lot of enjoyment for the game.
Must get that from the coach they played for. So that's a tribute to you too, Coach.
Thank you.
You know, that says a lot about you. So you won that state championship. You know, you get that state trophy. I don't know if you can remember. What's the feeling like for a head coach winning states? I mean, that's got to be the pinnacle. Right
closest to heaven on earth as you can get to, besides maybe your kids being born. You know, it's just one of those very surreal moments that you just want to stay in, but you can't. You know, you have to use it as a springboard for the next step and where you go. And but it's a great memory and one that I'll never forget. I'll always cherish.
You should. Let's real quickly talk about family.
Yes.
Tell us about your family.
My wife, Andrea, she's finishing up her English degree this year to be an English teacher. And I have 2 kids, and she has 2 kids from previous marriage, so we have 4 altogether. And
how old are the kids?
The kids are 22, 21, 16, and 15.
16, 15 go to school here?
One of them does.
Okay.
Yes,
nice.
one of the boy does. Yeah.
Nice. So she's all for you coaching, because I know another thing people don't realize, a lot of time it takes.
It takes an unbelievable amount of time. And I think that, you know, you're, as a family member, you know, you're part of that and you're involved in it. You've got to make sacrifices for it. And I think from the coaches' end, they've got to realize that they're very lucky to have understanding people in their family, and they have to do their part to pick up the slack for them when they can, especially out of season.
Are you a coach that if you go somewhere, they might see you doodling something if it's on your mind about maybe a defensive and offensive thing I need to change when I go to practice tomorrow?
All the time. I mean, you know, in the shower, at a restaurant, wherever. I mean, it's just, wait a second, let me just write this thought down. Oh yeah, all the time. It's just something, it's your passion. You know, it's you know, it's just a part of you. And you know, I think it was, who was it? It was Steve Spurrier that said one time, you know, if whatever you do, try your hardest not to make coaching your profession. You know, but with me, it's teaching obviously first, but coaching second. But the coaching part of it is, you know, it'll make you crazy. You know, and then if you just can't, then guess what? You're a coach.
You know, you're into the playoffs. Season's going to end in a month, maybe a month and a half, whenever. But when it does end, Coach, Do you give yourself some time off, or are you right away putting on the board who's coming back?
No, you give yourself some time. You have to. It's so intense. It's so. It's you just put so much time into it, and you have to put the extra work in preparing for your classes, and you have to kind of put it on the shelf for a while and spend the extra time with your family that you missed out on, and catch up. I mean, obviously, there comes a point where you got to get back in that weight room and get the guys refocused, but they're going to other sports, they're doing other things too, and you've got to be conscientious of that. And there comes a point where you gear it back up, but yeah, you definitely have to take some time.
Coach, thanks for giving us a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Good luck to you and your team in the playoffs, and I can personally see why your McLane's had so much success in your direction for 21 years.
Thank you. It's the ultimate compliment.